Hello, writers, and welcome to Writing for Screens. Today's episode, Writing My Novel, Progress Report number 9. My name is Glenn Gers, and I am the Chief Operating Everything of Writing for Screens, a channel here on YouTube in which I am trying to tell you some skills, some techniques, some insights into the process of screenwriting, mainly today's novels. Learned from a 25-year career writing for TV and movies. On my way out of the business, I am trying to leave behind some of the things I had to figure out for myself so that you can try them on for yourself, see if they help. This is no system. There is no right or wrong way. What I'm trying to do here is offer you some things I figured out, some things I learned, which may or may not be useful for you. Only you can decide that. The whole point of writing is every artist has to figure out their own path. You got your own goals, you got your own situation, you got your own style, and only you can figure out what that means, what you're going to do with it, how you're going to do it. What I can tell you is these are some things I figured out, or these are things I heard about other writers doing. Try them out and see if they work for you. If they do, great. If not, don't use them. It is not right or wrong. So I come to you live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Zone. But the real stuff of my channel here, the real lessons, the real valuable recipes for success, not really, are here. If you look on the channel, you'll scroll down, you will see there's a little screenshot of the channel main page. There's playlists. The playlists have brightly colored thumbnails with big words telling you the topic, instinct, dialogue, character, outlining, whatever it is, it's in there. The first 3 of these playlists are Screenwriting Essentials, Screenwriting Tools, Skills, and Craft, and The Process, Being a Writer. There's about 50 10-minute videos here, very concise. I crafted them to try and have them be useful skill bunches for you to consider, to try out at your leisure. That is where the heart of this channel is, so I wanted to let you know about that. But today we're going to be talking about what I'm doing right now, which is writing a novel, and every few weeks I am letting you guys look over my shoulder, share my screen as I work out the progress of writing a novel, because it's what's on my mind, and I think it might be useful. Here's some hellos. Hi, Michael. Hello, Donna. I'll get back to you, I promise. Hello, Nathan. Hello, Helene. Hello, Ricky. So here's the deal. Today we're just going to be talking about the novel. I got a couple of things to talk about, things that I read recently. Hello, Pedro. Glad you are lurking. You kind of gave yourself away. And a couple of articles that I've read that I thought were really interesting, and I thought I should share them. But let's get right to the main thing that's going on for me writing this novel right now, which is I am getting to the end of outlining. I am actually reaching the point at which the outline's as done as it needs to be. And I want to talk about how you know that. Because one of the main things that I've noted is just because I'm saying that it's time to stop outlining and go back to working on the text, does not mean that everything in the outline is perfect or everything in the outline is figured out. One of the things I wanted to talk about here, let's just show you this. All right, I'm gonna screen share a moment here. So here, this is my folder of this project called Now Every Moment. As you can see, I've broken it down into 4 separate projects for my own convenience. The text, the actual words of the book, but then I've got my notes, which is every single note I can think of, including the outline, character analysis, stuff like that. But I also separated out and did a project, which is when I call them projects, it's because that's what Scrivener, the software I'm using, calls them. Documents, collections of documents. One that's just the chronology. Because I'm writing historical fiction, I need to keep in mind what's happening in the world at the time that these characters are doing this, and also to keep an eye on when things happen in the story. So what I did was I set up just a set of index cards, essentially, noting the time and what's happening in the story, what's happening in world history, or the world that they're living in, and art history, because it's about artists. And there were things going on in art history at this moment, so I want to note like when a certain gallery show opened or when an article was published that the characters would have read. But right now we're talking about the outline, so I'm going to go into this document, which is called Notes. In my Notes document here, what I do is every day when I get to work, I go and I start a new one, and I format it, and I drop in the date, boom, and then I will type questions to myself or notes like, need to figure out the last name of Charlotte, the gallery owner. So this is the way I do this. At the end of the month, I close up the folder and start a new folder. I almost never look back at these. This is just a place for me to think, a place for me to work on the page so that my thoughts don't go sliding away and I lose them, or just a way to focus, is I write down whatever I'm thinking. So that's what the work notes are. But then down here, after some character notes, I have the outline. And that's what I was talking about, is there will be things in the outline. What I've done is I've just typed out what I think happens in a scene. But sometimes I will leave a question. I put the questions in pink so that I can, when I glance at a page of the outline, I'll go, oh, that thing isn't settled. That is unfinished. And what I wanted to talk about here is how it's okay to leave some of those. If it's something that is going to be have repercussions throughout the whole story, you probably want to sort out that before you start writing. But for instance, this one, it's like, where are they going to go to have a conversation? Are they going to go to a restaurant? This is a woman who's been away for much of a year, that the main character is in love with, and she has gone traveling, and he doesn't know where she's been. She's come back to talk to him about another character. Where are they going? So the thing is, I'm going to leave that to figure out till I'm writing. It's okay to leave some things to when you're writing the script. If it's just like details of that moment and you want to wait till you're in that moment to get to it, it's not a big deal to ask that. Furthermore, I wanted to talk about the idea that a lot of these things are just, there's no right or wrong, there's no grand system to it. You just sort of decide by how you feel, to a certain extent, just by how you feel. Okay, this is here's the basic scene. Billy, the woman who has been away, has been traveling. She comes back and she wants to talk to Tom about a plan, but she's a little worried. Tom is in love with her, but the plan that she wants to talk about is going to be about how she and Tom will work together to help a third character, Charlie, that she is in love with. In other words, it's a triangle. And she needs to see if Tom is okay. If he loves her, will he help her to get the things she loves? Even though that's going to mean that there's never been any secret of the fact that she's in love with Charlie. Tom has been trying to break them up. So the point about this is, where they're going to go, there are certain plot-related issues that will matter. For instance, she would go to somewhere public. She would go to somewhere private so that they can talk, because right now they're on the street. She's picking him up outside of a cafe that he hangs out in. She's in a taxi. She's like, come with me. But that she's not going to take him home. She's not going to take him to somewhere too personal. But at the same time, it's going to be someplace in her world. But then I wrote this note. I wrote, she says, no, let's go to dinner. I like the formality of it, but they're going to catch up. Okay, they're going to sit and talk for a long time. And I wrote, I can show you, I typed it out. I wrote, I like the formality of going to dinner, but I hate talking seriously over a meal, and I wouldn't want to make these characters do it. In other words, I don't personally like having a big conversation over a meal when you're trying to eat at the same time. I don't like doing that. So therefore, I'm not going to ask my characters to do it because I don't think it's fun. So what I think will happen is they'll go someplace where they can talk, like a bar or something. But the point about this little insight here is, there's no good or bad reason to have them go to a restaurant or not go to a restaurant. The reason that you choose is part of your artistic vision. It's just what happens when you are writing. You are making a billion choices a minute, and those choices are honestly much reflection of you. Like, you would not do that, or you would not want someone to do that, so you don't have them do that. That makes your work yours, and that's okay. All right, let me quickly check in on some of these comments. First of all, hello, Roddy. It's good to see you. Thanksgiving Eve. Yes, I am indeed here on Thanksgiving Eve. But it's okay. Not cooking this year. And hello from France to Willie. I have never met you before, Willie. So great to have you here. Thank you. How much does this program cost? You mean Scrivener? I don't know. I bought it close to 10 years ago. That's got to be information we can find out on the internet. I don't want to do that right now. But the answer is it's called Scrivener. I will put that in the description down below and link to their website. Scrivener, let me just, if I don't write things down, I don't remember them. Note Scrivener in the description. Okay. I think it's like it's somewhere between $30 and $60 for the Mac software, I believe. Hi, Hyro. Good to see you. Are you aiming for a word or page count, or just going as long as it runs? Absolutely just going as long as it runs. I mean, I don't want this to be a gigantic novel. I don't want it to be cumbersome. The story is fairly contained. My guess is it will be around 200 pages, but I don't know. And I have no idea how many words that is. Donna says, I'm sorry about the color of my type against it. Here, let's go. Let's close this. Boom. Okay. I'm constantly impressed with your organizational skills, which we'll just do this. Which I imagine may have come from experience. Yes. No, I am a Taurus. I am, in fact, a Taurus. But the answer is yes. The reason I organize so much, I am like as organized as I can be, because it helped. First of all, it's too frightening to not know. Like, I want to open this up and know where everything is so that I can think, and I don't have to go like, oh my God, what am I doing today? I know where my notes are. I know where my outline is. It's all broken down. And that helps me, because when I sit down to write, I'm not thinking about the process. I'm thinking about the contents. And this is a big lesson I really try to stress is, form some form of ritual that works for you, that you can get to a familiar place with. It does not matter if it's like mine. Mine is suited to my brain and my life and my finances. So therefore, I can afford to have a computer and a software. If you can't, that's okay. Get a notebook. Get a notebook with sections in it if you need. Whatever it is, however you want to work, get loose papers and files. It doesn't matter. What matters is whatever it is, you do the same thing every time you sit down to write, because then you stop thinking about how you write and you think about what you're writing. And that's the key. As I've said, like walking is an immensely complex physical act. If you ever watched a child try to learn to walk, you'll see. It's like, how do you keep your balance? How do you swing your arms? All these things. So for a while, when you're learning to walk or to talk or any of these things, the mechanics of the thing occupies all your time. It's all you can do to do that. But what you want to do is get so familiar with it by doing. The only way to do this is get familiar by doing the process over and over, to the point that you're not worried about how you walk. You're worried about where you're walking to, what path you're taking, the world that you're walking in. That's my lesson on writing, organization, and ritual. So yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you're here, Larry, for the 30 minutes that we've got you. How can you prevent a 19th century person carrying the same prejudice as a present day writer? You have to think. You have to think. You have to put yourself into the mind of the way you want them to think, and you have to sort of keep an eye on it in progressive drafts. There's no crime if you write a sentence, I just saw, what was it? I was watching something that was set in the past, and a character said, "Go for it." And I thought, I don't think that that's going to happen. But the main thing is, the best thing to do is write as best you can in the language of the time, which, by the way, if you're writing a historical thing, read stuff from that period. That's the best way to get the language of the time into it. In fact, among my notes here, I have a note. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, okay. Here's a note. I have things to read that Tom, the character, would have read because Tom is narrating. Tom is writing the book. I'm writing it in first person through Tom's character. So therefore, I've made a big list of writers that are likely to have been what this guy would have read, so that the language is in my head, the style of talking and thinking. So therefore, and then here I have, like, Tom wouldn't have read Paul Auster, who wrote in the 80s and on. But the way he writes is just good for it's a good writing, so I made a note to write it. But the answer is read. You can't see what I'm talking about. Okay, hold on. There you go. I have a document called Things to Read, Things Tom Could Have Read. And these are different authors who would have been popular in the time that Tom was writing. In other words, Tom is writing basically in the 60s and 70s, which means that the serious writers of his time were in the 20s through the 60s. So he would be a real mid-century American novelist guy. And so I'm trying to find people from that era, and I just made a list of people who I think Tom would read. And you can maybe see over here, I have a stack of books on my shelf. That shelf is just the stuff I'm reading for this. I hope you could hear that. I took stuff off my bookshelves, or I bought books specifically for this topic, and I put them on one separate shelf. And that's my shelf of things to read for this book. So I'm trying to stick to reading in that vein while I'm writing it, so that the language sort of sticks in my head. So that is the answer to how do you prevent a 19th century character from sounding like a 20th century character, or 21st. The answer is read of the period if you're writing period. Hi, Darian. Good to see ya. Okay. Yeah. I was reading about, you're very welcome. I was reading about a historian that I really like, writes, gosh, I can't remember her name now. Anyway, she was saying when she's writing about a period, she'll watch movies from that period, she'll read books from that period, whatever it is, trying to just get yourself into the mindset of that time. Hi, I love films. I'm glad you do. Okay, I'm sorry today we're not talking about films. All right, so let's talk once again about the outline. So here is, for instance, my outline of this section. So what I've got here is, as I said, when you're writing an outline, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to get it perfect in order to feel ready to write. What I'm doing is I'm going through, and every one of these things here in this, the left-hand column there is essentially a document. And this is a folder with all those documents in it. Each document is a scene of the story. So I've described that scene for myself, trying to just think about what each character is trying to do and what information I need to have happen or what actions I need to have happen. So in this case, it's about a little more than a page. Some of them, it's just a half a page. That's it. This is the whole thing. It's these characters are together, and things are, when I call it a brief honeymoon here, that it's not actually their honeymoon. They're not married. It's just the phrase a honeymoon period, meaning like it's especially blissful. So sometimes this can go on for quite a while, to 2 pages worth of notes about what I'm doing for a scene. So what I've been doing the past couple of months is going through every one of these scenes, every one of these documents, and saying to myself, just asking every question I can. What are they thinking? What is the shape of the scene? What has to happen for them to end the scene? Whatever it is that's on my mind. And now I've got to the point where, see, I asked the same question twice. I can take one out. What I'm doing is cleaning it up. Like right now, this question, where do they go? Meaning just where do they go to talk? It's a practical question, but I had it twice. Here, let me show you again. See? So I had where are they going? And down the page, I hadn't noticed I had already asked that question. So I can just get rid of one. What I'm doing is trying to make these documents as much that when I start to write, when I start to work on these scenes, I will have this one page for this one scene. And you only write one scene at a time. You only write one sentence at a time. So all I need to do is go to this scene and read through my notes on it and say, okay, this is what's going to happen, and this is what they're thinking, and this is what they need to do. That's what I'm going to write from. So what I'm doing now is just going through and make sure that when I look at it, I don't have too many questions. Like some of these are just research questions, and I can do that when I'm at that point of the writing. But the rest of the scene, I don't have many questions. I know what it's about. And then this one, I actually know everything it's about. There's no pink here at all. I know what this scene is about. To a certain extent, I've got it sketched out. Also, you should notice, this is not well written. This is just my writing for myself. Like I keep changing tenses. I tend to write in present tense because of screenwriting. But then at the same time, this is something that he's heard from Charlie. So he's telling it in the past tense. So I just she knocked at the door. He's in shock. I'm not bothering to clean that up. It doesn't matter. The point is I'm getting the thing into my head. It's all that matters. Hi, Gene. I'm glad you're here. I don't mind if you're late. There is no real late. You can always check out what I've said so far somewhere else. Did I tell you the theme of the story? In the sense that there's like a theme, like it's about... actually, this is interesting. I have a note about that. So let me show you. Here's my note about the theme. It's about art. It's about love. That's it. The actual theme, if you want to talk about like what is the theme of the book, like what is it saying? It's saying a lot of stuff. It's a book. Books can say lots and lots of different things. And so I don't have like a sloganeered Hollywood, the one-liner that is the theme. The theme is that people can sometimes love different people in different ways. The theme is that success in art is not necessarily measured by whether anyone pays or even knows about your accomplishments. And another one is that if you get involved with people, things that they care about tend to start to matter to you. Those are all some of the themes, but there's a lot of themes. There's a lot of ideas here, and I don't feel like a book has to have a single. At least this book doesn't have to have a single overarching theme. The theme is when you love something, art or people, then it changes you. It affects you. It's good for you. That's the theme. Okay, so let's go back to the outline. So what I've been doing is just going through all of these notes, and then all of these notes. For instance, I decided to make a list of the characters. I was working on the characters' names. So I just said, make a list of the names and look at them, because I don't want the names. I've changed a bunch of names recently, like trying to finalize the names, because I don't want them to sound alike or be confusing. And so, for instance, I've been worried a little about this guy, Felix de Voros, who's Hungarian, and Voros D, he added the D as an affectation, but Voros apparently is a Hungarian name. But then I have another character named Ruben Bortz. Now, Voros and Bortz actually sound alike, but they look different enough on the page that I'm going to live with it. Because I like those two names, and I think I got them right. What I'll do is I'll just brainstorm a bunch of names. Like right now, I know that Charlotte is supposed to be a New York Irish character, Irish American, and therefore I want her to have a distinctly Irish name. The problem is I don't want it to be like too obvious, and so I feel like Flanagan is not quite right. Rourke. The thing is, you don't want the names to be too alike, so therefore I don't want her name to sound or look like any of the main characters' names. So those are the things I'm working on now. So as I go through, but when I'm writing it, I actually want to have settled their names. So I'm just going through every single one of my notes. This overview is just basically scolding myself. Just like things that I'm just like, here, just like, remember, tell the story. You don't have to worry about the themes or the research or anything. The main thing is make sure you're telling the story. And then this is what the story is about, just for me to remember. To remember that stylistically, it's in Tom's voice. So it is all right to literally story tell. Like he is telling you this story. You can, to a certain extent, have him narrate and give opinions and things. This is just a note I've realized I was beginning to worry too much about, because it is told in one person's voice, and the voice was supposed to flow from scene to scene. I was worried too much about making sure that the connections of thoughts, like when he tells one part of the story and then goes to another, that it flowed. But then I realized that that's actually bad. In books, you want stops and starts. You want sections. You want a certain point. First of all, I believe the audience likes a break. They like to be able to see, or like a chapter ending or a section of a chapter, a little double space or something to allow you to say, I have concluded a section and now I'm starting a new section. I'll have to put those sections together in my mind, but the author doesn't have to necessarily glide through every transition. I find books that do that, somebody like Henry James, somebody like that, who just writes so flowingly, I sometimes sort of want it more modern and broken up. So anyway, let's see what else. Oh, we're getting some questions. Okay. This technique is so dang good. Thank you. I have found that as I am writing my story, more stories, or subplots maybe, start appearing, and I go chasing them and somehow need to tie them up somehow. Let me see if I can... I need to get a better background. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can make this go away. Boom. All right. That's no good. Okay. The point is, I am appreciative. Thank you, Killian. This technique gets that settled up front. That I would agree. That's my same. I have the same issue. The issue for me here. Let's see Killian's note here. I find as I am writing my story, more stories or subplots start appearing, and I chase them, and I don't organize them. I would say that the reason that I have created this form for myself is because I need to have a place to put things and also a place to keep them contained. Like everything sprawls. When I write, everything sprawls. Everything sparks 1,000 other ideas, and it's too much. So to be able to say, no, this scene is just about this. This moment is just about this. And to write that down in a simple form, that to me is very helpful. And that is why I do the outlining form that I have. It's a way to keep myself from sprawling. And also a way to give myself a workable task. And I do want to talk briefly about two. I put in the description already links to two resources, articles, essays by other writers about their writing. And I want to talk about them because they're really cool. The first one is, I don't know if it's the first one in your listing, but there's a Substack by a novelist named Christine Sneed. And her Substack is called BOOKISH. I think it's very helpful. I would recommend it. I would suggest you check it out. BOOKISH by Christine Sneed. And what she talks a lot about the business of being a novelist, about what agents are there. She'll interview people who own bookstores or agents or stuff to get their take on things. But also, she talks about her own experiences as a novelist because she's written many novels. One of the things I think is fascinating in the article that I linked to is someone asked her. Here, let me read some of this. Okay. She said someone asked, like, basically, how do you not go crazy writing a novel? How I had managed to write and publish 3 novels without losing my mind. Here, I'll go to this. It's from Christine Sneed is her name, and the name of the Substack is BOOKISH. Okay, so what she's doing is she first talks about what it's like to write. Then she mentions something which just blows me away. I've written more novels than I've published. 10 more. 10 novels that she didn't publish. Doesn't include the 6 or 7 that are half to 3/4 finished that for one reason or another were exiled to the she calls it purgatory, the drawer. Okay, so the point is she talks about what it's like to write novels and what it's like. So she's saying a novel gets written by saying no to a lot of other things. Yeah, it's true. You have to sit down. You have to work on it. You have to whatever. Just talking about. Then she says each new novel will most likely feel as if you're writing a novel for the first time. And she talks about how my point about all this is that Christine is she's experienced, she's insightful. She also talks about her process. Her process and my process could not be more different. Her process is no outline. Her process is she's figuring it out as she goes along. I cannot imagine that. I can understand how she could not imagine mine. One of the most important things I think you guys should do is explore a lot of different people's insights into how they do it. Because some things will click for you and others won't. But when they talk about it, they'll talk about what it's like for them. And that's really, really valuable. I just think that this her and there's many of them. Many people are writing about writing, but I just like Christine's a lot. The other article is in the New York Times. I saw it, I think today or yesterday, and it's by an author named. Hold on, sorry. An author named Kelly Barnhill. And she had a fall. She took a fall down the stairs and her brain was injured. She had a brain injury. She had serious brain injury. And she's talking about what it's like to be a writer with a non-working brain. And it's what's fascinating about this is how much insight it gives you into writing, working brain or not. And it's also just deeply haunting about what it's like if you are define yourself and live your life entirely with words, and then all of a sudden you don't have access to words with your brain. The first quote I wanted to show you here, because she's talking about how when with her injury, she can't really focus on a lot. She needs to focus on one thing at a time. She writes, but writing fiction also requires the ability to hold many thoughts, balancing them like spinning plates on each finger, each toe. Composing a novel requires all of these thoughts to be present all the time. It's an exhausting job, and she's talking about how she just doesn't have the strength for that. The reason that I have the outline is because that way I get the plate. The plates can not fall when I'm looking away from them, because I believe that is accurate. The more I go through the outline, the more I can keep those things in my head at the same time, even if I'm not working at them. It's like if you live in a house or move into a house or go to a place. Suppose you move to a new city. At first, you just don't know anything. But the more that you walk through it, the more that you repeatedly, over and over, go to different places, the more you get this sense of the place, of the whole sprawl of it. And you know it in your head. You know where things are. You know the distance between them. You know the relationship. You know the experience of getting there. That is what it's like to write a complicated piece of writing. And the outline for me is like a map. It's like, okay, I remember the store is over here and the park is over here. And I want to write that down so I can keep coming back to it and looking at it and get it into my head. Eventually, you need to have it in your head. Or if not in your head, at least in a place where you can then transfer it to the text. Because it can leave your head if it's in the text. The key is to have the text. It always takes time. You gotta go, piece by piece through whatever you're writing. But you also need to have the whole thing in there. For me, the outline is helpful. Other people find it differently. But the main thing is when you're writing a complex piece of writing, there needs to be some sense for the reader eventually of the relationship of the pieces. If you can manage to write it piece by piece and never in your own mind have the picture, but the big picture shows up in the finished writing, that's okay too. Honestly, I'm not going to say you have to have it all in your head. You just have to have it all in the book, in the text, in the script. That's the key. I'm going to do a bunch of questions, then I'm going to come back to these quotes because they're marvelous. What point of view are you going to use? I'm going to use Tom's. Well, actually, this is sort of let me show you. Here we go. Okay, here's the outline, right? The outline is formed this way. This is, if you look over on the left, you'll see what I'm talking about here. This thing, the outline, okay? The outline is 4 notebooks, notebook 1, notebook 2, notebook 3, notebook 4. The story is this guy, Tom, wrote a memoir. All by himself in 4 little composition book notebooks. So the book is organized by these 4 notebooks, which tell chronologically the story of his love affair with these 2 people, with his love triangle he was in. But in between each of those is a little, what I call interchapters. There's a little chapter in the 3rd person. The notebooks are Tom's memoir, so it's first person. Each of these little 5 interchapters is a character's interaction with the notebooks or with Tom's work. Tom is dead by the time these 5, we don't know that yet, but when we're reading it, these little things are going to be, 3 or 4 pages tops, little sections in between the notebooks. That's the structure of the book. That's the point of view. Okay. Where do you get your inspiration for names? I was just talking to a friend. I don't seem to get an idea of nameless. It depends. For instance, I had decided that this character, Felix, was Hungarian by birth. He lives in New York City in the 1930s. What I knew was that I wanted him to be European nobility, European aristocracy who had been exiled, which happened a lot in the 20th century. So I knew that this character, Felix, used to be minor, like a duke, like the family of an earl or something. But I didn't want him to be British. I didn't want him to be German or Russian. Russian would be the easy one because there were a lot of, after the Russian Revolution, there were a lot of Russian nobility who moved. I wanted to have that feeling, but not have it be Russian. So I said, what Eastern European countries could he be from that might have a similar situation, even if they were just exiled by their finances. But I thought, I don't know, Hungarian, Romanian, Bulgarian. I wasn't sure. I was looking around in the Central and Eastern Europe, Austrian, and I discovered that Hungary had a revolution right after the Russian. And so I decided he would be Hungarian and then moved to Paris, which is where he opens an art gallery, which is where he then moves to New York. So I knew what the basic point about this is. I knew he was a Hungarian character. Therefore, I just searched on the internet Hungarian last names. There's some on Wikipedia. There's some websites with Hungarian history and Hungarian names. And there's all sorts. If you can just narrow it down to a place, to a type of person, that helps. But lists of names are not bad. I was talking to a friend. I find the end credits for great big comic book movies, the end credits for a comic book movie has almost 1,000 names. So just look through the end credits of those movies. You'll just get a lot of cool ideas. That's often where I get ideas for names. My grandmother, who was born in 1910, was named Beatrice. Oh, yes, there's another thing. If you are writing about American characters, the Social Security Administration has a most popular names of any year. So you can, through the Census and Social Security rankings databases, you can say, what were the most popular boys and girls names of people born in a certain year? So if your character is, like mine, is in his late 20s, he's in his 20s in the 1930s, which means he was born in the 19-teens or 10s. So I went to the Social Security Administration names database, and you can say 1911, 100 most popular names. And they will give you a long list of which names were popular at any era. It's sort of cool. Okay. I'm writing in first person and third for different characters. I'm wondering if that will work. Well, I clearly think it'll work because I'm doing it too. It depends. The thing to remember if you're using first person and third person is we are likely to be drawn into the first person story. In other words, we are likely to identify with a character who writes in first person. So if you're sort of alienated, you're pushing us to a certain distance from the third person characters, and you are giving us intimacy with the first person character. That's cool. Just know you're doing it. What do you think about outlining on the paragraph level? Sometimes I write a list of sentences, one for every paragraph, and then expand those. Yeah, Robert, if that works for you, I find I don't need to do that. And so I don't. In other words, just like I know, if I know roughly what the scene's about, I can bang out different sentences and paragraphs at the time of writing. That's really the key for me that I wanted to explain about this whole outlining process. The point of the outline is to help you to write. No one's going to see the outline. It can be a disastrous mess. It could be only comprehensible to you. So the point is you should outline to the amount that you genuinely need it. I've experienced enough writing to know what I need to know. I found that if you over-outline, you can lose interest in the text. So I don't personally want to outline every paragraph because I want to leave some creative room in the writing of the text. But that's me. Everyone is different. Whatever works for you is fine. All I would say is don't spend so much time planning that you don't do the thing. And don't spend so much time planning that your plan is better than the thing. Those would be my advices on that topic. My novel is too long to finish during my time. I think I might do better dividing into stories about each character. Yes, I would urge you to do that. Yes. I think that, what do I think? I think you are right. If I believe if you have a work that is so dense and sprawling and large that you can't grasp it, let alone perhaps survive to write all of it, write a piece of it. Break it into pieces that are workable. And then write those, and maybe they'll all come together, or maybe it'll be the great unfinished work in which they'll publish the books and then the collected notes on the other parts. But whatever it is, the key is always do what you can, and don't worry about plan for the rest, but do what you can do right now. Never put off writing. Writing, of course, meaning both outlining and writing. Okay. Do you devote time to one journal or do you jump around? Do you mean in my planning? Depends. Mostly I've been doing one, then doing the next, and doing the next, like going through 1 through 4. But certain times I will jump around. Hi, Dee. Thank you for being here. Hi, Hyperabs. How do you find the balance, number of scenes, for setting the motivation of the main character? In a recent film, a lot of people didn't connect with the main characters because they felt that portion was rushed. Tricky. So I'm talking about a novel today. The thing is, you have there's no such thing as a first act of a novel. There's just getting into the story. And so you can take as long as you want and you can do as much detail as you want. In films, I would say the balance is get to it right as soon as you can. In all film work, even if you're going to write a series and it's going to be 77 episodes, still every one episode has to grab you and work as high intensity as it can all the time. That's, I think, a big difference between fiction and film, although I think good fiction does that too in its own way. But the main thing is, in film, in screenwriting, the answer is, if you're setting the motivation for the main character, get to it right as soon as you can. I'm a big one for meeting the main character and setting up their problems ASAP. First page, if you can. I've talked about the fact that the inciting incident can be before the story starts. But if whatever it is, I believe, do not spend any time clearing your throat and setting things up. Get right into it. That's my thought. After my second DBS brain implant, I was suffering from apathy. Love of film. Yay, great. I am very glad. Yes, we all face challenges in focusing on our work, in getting time to do our work, in whatever personal conflicts we have about our work, plus whatever physical and financial and emotional things are getting in between us and doing what we'd like to do easily. The answer is, and this brings me back to the quotes. I want to get back to those quotes from this fabulous article about brain injury. The answer always is, do what you can. Let me just actually get right to that, because you never know. I might not get to the rest. At the end of this essay, she says, writing this essay, for example, has been a process of fatigue management, time limitations, and task reorientation. In other words, she had to rethink her process. I had to invent a new process in order to tackle the project. The project is an essay. She's not writing a book in this case. It is hard enough for her to organize her thoughts. It took her a long time to write this essay, which is beautifully written, by the way. I had to invent a new process in order to tackle the project. I believe that is key. Figuring out the process that will work for the project and for you, that's it. So for her, this process was ideas inscribed one at a time, thought by thought, sentence by sentence, on note cards, each composed over days, weeks, months. Eventually, I laid them out carefully on the floor, followed by a nap on top of said index cards. The order kept changing. The number of cards kept increasing, that's good, by the way, until I could see it. my story. It's still unfinished. My energy, my mind, once unlimited, can now only operate within a specific number of breaths. This essay can be read as a series of sighs. It's a really good essay. Kelly Barnhill. New York Times, there's a link to it. The point here is process. She is facing she's facing worse than we're facing, except possibly Michael. We are all challenged when we write. Anxiety, guilt, fear, conflicts over taking time away from your friends or family or loved ones, having to work for a living. But what you do in answer to that is what she did in answer to a possible for her to remember things or to organize them, which are both key to writing. And what she said was the answer is work. I hope this is working out okay. The software just told me that the stream is lower quality. Hoping it's going to be okay. But anyway, the point is work your process to whatever pieces you can manage. That's the thing. That's what my outline is. That's what all of it is about. Working it into pieces you can manage. If that is just a sentence a day, a sentence a week, then do that. But if you keep doing that as stubbornly as Kelly Barnhill did, you will get a beautiful essay out of it. You will get a book out of it. If you keep working piece by piece, sentence by sentence, trying to grasp things in a concrete written form. That's the key. Okay, let me do some quick questions, and then we're going to be signing off. Have you ever written a piece with multiple roaming character point of view? Lonesome Dove, if you read. I did not read it, but I've read and worked on things like that. And yes, I love that. I think that's the greatest thing. If I finish this novel and I decide to take on a second one, I've already begun one that is like that, which has many, many characters and points of view and sub-stories, because I love those stories. So the answer is, yeah, I think those are great. It was intimidating to try and work on that until I had written one like this. This is relatively easy. So I said to myself, why not do the easy one first? Because for a while I was like, oh, let me tackle the hard one. Do the easy one first, get some confidence. Okay. Can you please discuss your thoughts, feelings, beliefs on appropriation? I can, but not here. Let me do that in an Ask Me Anything. I will make a note on it. I will also, you can email me about that privately. That is a complex and controversial, sensitive topic that I don't want to speak carelessly about. But I will tell you that my basic fundamental belief is that everyone should have the right to speak, but no one should be ruled out of the right to speak because they are trying to speak, trying to imagine or understand or even comment upon another group or type of person. I believe we all have the right to speak all the time. The problem with appropriation is if it's bad, if it's stereotypical or thoughtless or just crappy. Okay, that's between Jean and Michael. Okay, I like to start writing without knowing where I'm going. This is what Christine Sneed does, so you should check her thing out. And let my imagination run wild. But there comes a time when I don't know where I'm going. That's when it's time to outline for me. Absolutely. Yeah, this is really, really urgent. Whatever floats your boat, do it. If you like to just randomly write some stuff down and then stop and outline and then randomly write stuff down and then outline and stop, great. If you want to write a whole draft without thinking, just impulsively, and then later go back and outline it, restructure it, cool. If you want to write something that is simply impulsive moment to moment and never look back at it and release it like that, that's okay too. I outline because it helps me with my anxiety and my sense of being able to imagine better within organization. I create better when I have some kind of thing to hold on to, which I've described in my video about fear of writing, which I will just mention here because it talks a lot about this fear of writing, and I'll link down below later. I get too lost if I don't narrow it down to a dramatic action in a scene and a character in a moment. That's why I do it. I don't do it because it's like right. I do it because it helps me to overcome my problems. And I think that's what we all should be doing. So if you're overcoming your problems by not, editorializing it all, but just like following your whims, great, whatever works. Cool. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Gene, everybody. Thank you. Hi, Jonathan. Okay. Lagged a bit. Seems okay now. Yay. Okay. Between Michael and Gene, there's a question of his ancestry and his last name. Cool. Yes. So listen, I think we're going to stop. I think this is a good time. I don't like to go past an hour, but I will be back. I will be back on this topic. Next time, I hope to be talking about transitioning from just working on the outline and the notes to working on the words, the text, the story. So that's where we're going. In the meantime, for those of you who are in the USA or other places that celebrate the Thanksgiving holiday, I hope you have a lovely Thanksgiving. Please stay safe and please go write something.